As we continue to explore the more advanced interactive features that we can design in our InDesign documents, we come across what we call sliding menus. Sliding menus are a great way to maintain content that needs to be ever present, but that doesn't need to be visible until it is requested. So in this case, what you're looking at is a menu that would be up here or some kind of content, and then I have complete real estate of my app to do whatever I want in here. So if I want to show images or if I want to do some other interactive presentation here, I have the ability to use all the real estate until I need to see what content is inside that menu. So when I want to call on that menu, all I need to do is simply click on the button and the menu slides in, or the content box slides in. And this doesn't have to be a menu. It could be any content. You can have images in here, you can have video, you can have anything you want to put in there. And then when you're done with it, you can close it back and it goes right back up. So let's see how we get this done. And just like with the other interactive features, it's basically a combination. As you will see, it's a combination of all the different elements that we've already learned. In this case, we're going to be using buttons and multi-state objects, MSOs. So let me close this and create a new document. And I'm going to use the same settings that I have been using. In this case, what I want to do is I want to create all my elements, the things that I will need. So I will be needing an arrow of some kind. So I'm just going to quickly cough up one with a rectangle, and I'm going to make it red so that it stands out. I'm just going to simply delete one of its points by using the pen tool, and I have my arrow. Now this is the simplest form of an arrow, so I would ask you for your designs not to do something like this. I would ask you to actually invest time into creating the proper geometry for what you're working on. Then I'm going to need two text boxes, one which is going to have the content and the other one which is going to be the header menu for the actual button that we're going to be creating to call the menu or to call the content. In this case, I'm just going to simply use the text box, and I'm going to create a text box that's about ye high, and I'm going to put content into it by going under the type drop down and choosing fill with placeholder text. So that's good for now. I'm going to be using that. You place this back here, and that's probably where my text is going to end up. Now let me put this arrow pointing upwards for now. Then I'm going to create another text box, and that text box will be the header for that menu bar. So I'm just simply going to call it menu for now, and I'm going to make it about 30 points in size. And let me resize this a little bit. And actually, let me just stretch it out so that it matches this one so that I maintain some kind of visual continuity amongst all these elements. Let me actually bring that arrow to the top. So I'll left click it and go arrange, bring to front. So the arrow is on top of everything. So now what I want to do is I want to turn these two elements into a button. Now, before I do that, I want to see what this is looking like without all the guides. So I'm going to press W on the keyboard to see what this is looking like. And I see now that this arrowhead is kind of off all the way out here, even though it looked fine on the other one. When I had all the guides actually were noise and they were making this thing look aligned, but it's not. So I want to probably bring it back up here, place it a little bit closer to the word menu, and try to align it with the baseline of the word. Okay, so once I do that, I have everything pretty much set up the way I want it to appear. So what I want to do is I want to turn that into a button. So to do that, I'll select both items, and then if I go to my buttons and forms area, I can just simply say I want that to be a button, and you'll notice that it created a button. However, you will notice that that's button 1 and that is button 2, and that is not what I want. I want both things to be treated as a button. So let me undo a couple of steps so that I don't have them as a button, and before I turn the whole thing into a button, I want to go ahead and group them. So if I select both items by dragging a selection across them and press Control G or Command G on the Mac, now they're grouped, and then at this point I can turn them both into a button, and it will be called button 1. This will be called the close button. That's what's going to be called, close button. And this is my content area, that's all. So at this point, what I want to do is I want to grab those two things, and I want to group them, both of them. So selecting the button and the content, I want to group them. So I'll select them, press Control G on the keyboard. Now they have been grouped, and now it's one single element. With that selected by itself, I am going to create 3 states with the exact same values. So I'm going to go to the object states, and I'm going to create a multi-state object by clicking with the item selected, with the group selected. I'm going to click on this convert selection to multi-state object. Now what that's going to do is it's going to create two states for me by default. So when I click that, it's going to create state 1, which is the original, and state 2, which is where this thing is going to think where I'm. And the reason why it's doing it is because I have two elements integrated within that particular grouping. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and make use of that to actually create a third state. This is going to have this multi-state object is going to have three states. It's going to have one where the menu's at the top, one where the menu's at the bottom, and one when it goes back to the top. So the beginning one will be called, let me go ahead and name it, begin. And then the bottom, this one here, will probably be called end. And then I'm going to make a copy of end by dragging the actual state from here to the plus sign. It creates a copy of that state. And then I'm just going to go ahead and click on the name, shift click on the name, and I'm going to name it middle. So it will start here, it will go to end, and then when I click on either a beginning or end, it's going to go to the middle point. So the middle is where it states down here. The other two is where it goes up to the top. So let me press the W key on the keyboard to remove my preview. And then what I'm going to do is with the begin state selected, what I want to do is I want to move this up and align it with my margin up here so that my menu is the only thing that's showing. Okay. Then I'll go to the end and I'll do the exact same thing. Those two items should be aligned. They should have the exact same position, beginning and end. So if you do a quick change between them, you'll notice that they are both pretty well aligned because I use the guideline and I'm snapping to my margin, so it's snapping to it and it's going to be aligned. You can also use your positioning values here to match the numbers if necessary. And then the middle point, it's at the bottom. Now what I want to do at this point is I want to add some type of animation to those items that are inside the states. So remember, to enter into the states, I need to select the state on the multi-state object, and then I need to double click the item to select it inside the state. Remember, when that little square gets, this little rectangle here and the object states gets full, that means I am inside the actual state. Another way to select those items is by simply, let me deselect, select the multi-state object, then I can go to the layers menu and I can dig into the state actually and click on the different items that I need to select. So I can shift click the different items within the state, and that's what's selected right now. So both ways of doing the exact same thing. Now, so what I want to do at this point is I want to think out how is the animation for this working. When I click on the button, this slides down, which means the middle point is animated from the top to the bottom. That's what's happening. So when I click at the beginning, on the beginning state, when I click on the menu bar, it's going to start sliding down towards the middle point. So it is the middle state that will receive the first block of animation. So let me select it. Let me go to the layer window, uncollapse that, uncollapse the multi-state object name, and then go ahead and select inside middle. I'm going to be using the button, and then I'm going to shift select and select the content. Both things have been selected. Then I'm going to close the layers window, and now I'm going to open the animation panel. In the animation panel, I want to do several changes. The first thing I want to do is I want to have this fly in from the top. So I'm going to say fly from the top. And I want to make sure that my preset is to current location, which is I want it to land where it's at. So it's going to the current location. And then what I want to do at this point is remove the opacity fade in. I don't want it to fade in as that butterfly is fading in. I simply want it to slide down. So I want to turn off that fade in option from here. So I'm going to click on none under the opacity change, and that's going to retain whatever opacity change it is at this moment, because it's right here saying to current location and it's saying from preset. So basically the setup is not going to change the opacity because it's going to take whatever the value of opacity it is when I create it. Now, that is the animation for that part of the menu. Let me then go back to let me close the animation tab and open up the object states again. Click on the pasteboard somewhere to deselect, select the multi-state object. Now let's go to the end. When I'm in the middle and I click on this button, that menu is going to slide up towards the end. So the end point is where I'm going to be creating the animation. And this time it's going to be flying in from the bottom. So I'm going to select the end state in my multi-state object. Then I'm going to go to the layers window. I'm going to uncollapse to get to the multi-state object to the end, and then I'm going to select the button, the close button, and I'm going to select the text box that's inside that state. And with that done, I want to now close that layers window, go to the animation, and animate those two different objects. I'm going to add animation for that, and I am going to be flying in from the bottom. This time, I'm going to make sure that I turn off the fade in. And one thing I forgot to do on the previous one is that I want both of them to happen at the same time. So the timing for both animations needs to be the same. To do that, remember, I need to click on this button, or with both items selected still, which they are, I can click on the timing window to open it up. So either one, this button here, or that menu will open up the exact same window. So I need to now select both of these for that multi-state object content, and I'm gonna group them together so that they happen at the same time. I need to go back now because I forgot to do it on the previous one. I need to go back to the object state for the middle, which is this one, select it, and then go to the layer to select whatever is inside the multi-state object middle, which is here. I'm gonna select the button and shift select the text as well, so both items are selected. Close that, go to the timing for that, which I've already animated. Select both animations. Remember, that was the first thing we animated. And then I'm going to link them. So now both animations are going to roll in from the top at the same time. Now, the animations and the multi-state object has all been set up. The only thing that hasn't been set up is the buttons. What do the buttons do? Well, the buttons call the actual animations. So what I want to do, and they call the animations by going into a specific state. So you will notice that when I did this, as I was creating the animation, I did not select an event. And the reason for that was because the event that was already set up for them, if you look under timing, is on state load, because it does recognize that this is part of the multi-state object. So when I went in through the layers and selected the objects, the program actually saw that this was part of the multi-state object. And because of that, it automatically assigns when that state loads, then it's going to go ahead and create the animation. That's what's going to happen. So I don't have to worry about adding an actual event to the button. All I need to do is tell it where to go. I just need to tell that button, when I click you, go to this specific state. So in order to do that, let's click on the pasteboard again to deselect. Let's go to the first state. So let's go to object state. So select that multi-state object, go to the beginning one. I want to click on this button down here, the menu and the arrow. So I'm going to go to the layer. I'm on the first state. I'm going to go to the layers window. I'm going to dig all the way down into the begin thing that contains both the button and the text. And I want to select the button this time only. That's all I want to select. So I'm going to select that button. Let me close the layers window, go to the buttons menu, and that's the close button that we had created. Let's go ahead and add an action. The action will be to go to a state. And when I do that, it's going to tell me what state. Well, since I didn't name that multi-state object, I kept it as multi-state 1, which is fine in this case because we only have one. Then I need to tell it where do I want that to go when I click on that button. And I want to say from that multi-state, when I click on this button, I want to go to the middle option. And that's where it's going to go. Then let me go back to the multi-state object, deselect by clicking on the pasteboard, select again, select the entire multi-state object. Then I'm going to go to the middle, and to the end, sorry, and that's going to take me again to the middle. It's going to do the exact same thing. So let me go to the layer window, to the layer panel, sorry, go on all the way on the multi-state object to the end multi-state object, select the button only, and then close that window, go to the buttons and tell it to go to state. And I'm going to go to the middle as well on this one. So both of them are going to go to the middle. Now, you'll notice that this arrow is pointing up. Since I am inside that multi-state object, I can quickly just go ahead and double click on that graphic and rotate it 180 degrees and place it where I need it to be in terms of in which direction I want it to point. It's not changing the other arrows because when I made these multi-state objects and I made copies of them, that's exactly what I did. I made copies of everything. So as I was creating the multi-state objects, the different states, I created copies. And so this is a copy of the original button. It's not the same graphic. It's a completely separate graphic. So that it's going to work. Now let's go back to the multi-state objects once again. And I want to, once again, click on the multi-state deselect by clicking on the pasteboard, click on the multi-state object to select it. Now I'm going to go to the middle, and the middle is going to be pushing that menu up. It's going to go, when I click on this, it's going to go towards the end state. So let me go to the layers panel, open up the middle state on my multi-state object, select the button only, and then close that layers panel, go to the buttons, and the action for this will be to go to state, and it's going to go to the end state. That's where it's going to go. So the end state goes there, and that works just fine. Let's go ahead, the arrow's pointing in the right direction. Before I test this, let me go back to object state, select the multi-state object, go to begin, and I notice that my arrow here is also pointing downward. So let me go to the layers panel, go into the begin multi-state object from the layers panel, click on the button, and maybe double click now on the arrow and rotate it 180 degrees, and then place it where you need it to go, which is there. And now the whole thing has been set up. Buttons are pointing to the proper multi-state objects, and animations have been set up before any actual interactivity was added to this. So let's go ahead and test this menu to see how it works. Let's go ahead and click on the EPUB interactivity preview and hit the play button. You'll notice that my menu button is at the top of my interface, and then when I click on it, it slides down to showcase the content. Notice that the arrow is pointing upwards now, so if I click on that, it's gonna hide my menu. Now you'll notice that this happens fairly fast, and that's fine if that's what you want to. I also have some easing, as you see on these settings. So I can modify these things if I need to once everything has been set up without breaking anything, without having to redo the whole thing. And to do that, we do it the same way that we did when we were talking about multi-state objects and animations. We can simply dig through the layers window and select the items that we want to modify. So if I were to say, okay, I want to go to my multi-state object, I want to select it, and I want to go to the middle, and I want that to take, I don't want the EC out or EC in. I want none of that EC in. How can I change that? Well, with the middle state selected on the multi-state object, I can go into the layers panel, dig all the way to the middle state, select both the button and the content itself, close that layer panel, and if I go to animation, you will notice that this is already selected to the animation that I had preset. So I can at this point say, you know what, I don't want to have any EC in or out, so I can go ahead and modify that from here if I want to, and say I want that interaction to take 2 seconds instead of 1 second. I can go ahead and modify that. Once I do that, let me go ahead and test this, and you will notice that the animation takes longer, and it's not ECing out when it comes out. You will notice also that there's a bit of jumpiness. It almost like the menu, when I click on it, it sort of jumps all the way to down here and it moves down. You see, it almost moves like halfway through the page. Part of the reason, not part of the reason for that is because when I created that animation over here, when I selected each one of these items, let me now select each one of them separately in the middle state. So let's go to the middle state. If I select the button 2, just the button 2 alone, you will notice that it has a path of animation, and I didn't modify it where it began from. I simply left it where it started. So if I click here in my path, you'll notice that the path starts here in the middle. I can always stretch it out all the way to the edge of my interface. I keep on moving, sorry, I keep on not clicking on the proper thing. So now that I have it selected, let me click on the white arrow tool, click on that anchor point, and I can move that all the way to the beginning, to the edge of my application. Next, I'm going to select the text box for that state, and you'll notice that it has the exact same thing. So if I do that, if I change this, I should have created all these changes before I even animated any of this. So now that I've done that, they're not probably going to load at the same time. I mean, it's going to look like one is coming in before the other because I didn't size the animation equally. So that's something to take into account before you actually get started. So let's go ahead and let me undo all this really quick. And actually, I'm going to do it by the numbers. So let's see. There we go. So let's go ahead and I'm going to do this by the numbers. So this will be selecting that point on the path. I'm going to go shift and click on the up arrow by having selected that anchor at the end of the path. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. That's 25 clicks. So I'm going to do the same thing for the menu down here. This one, I see the path there. I'm going to click on that point on the path with the white arrow tool, with the direct selection tool, and I'm going to go 25 times, pressing shift and pressing the arrow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. They should now match. So when I test this, let's go ahead and stop the preview, create a new preview, and when I click on the menu, they should work just fine. And as you can see, my menu now slides from the top nicely. Okay, so I can go ahead and modify the position where it starts from and modify the timing by modifying the actual path of the animation. And like I said, if you have other content here that you need to be visible, say for example, this is a portfolio and you're showcasing an interface, or you are showcasing a photograph that you took or some kind of illustration that you created, and you want to have you want to give the people the opportunity to appreciate the actual art at full size, then use the entire real estate and just keep a menu somewhere so that if they need to see it, it doesn't have to be called menu. It could be information or something like that, or info. And if they click on it, then you have a whole paragraph where you tell them basically what the verbiage behind that specific thing that they're looking at, you know, what is the content about. And then when they're done reading, they can always close it and go back and review the actual artwork or whatever you want them to see. So this is how you create sliding menus, hiding menus in InDesign.